Sentences with Snow White. Once upon a time, there was a beautiful girl named Snow White.
Once upon a time, there was a beautiful girl named Snow White.
She had skin as white as snow.
She had skin as white as snow.
Snow White's stepmother was jealous of her beauty.
Snow White's stepmother was jealous of her beauty.
The stepmother had a magic mirror.
The stepmother had a magic mirror.
Every day, she asked the mirror who was the fairest.
Every day, she asked the mirror who was the fairest.
The mirror always said Snow White was the fairest.
The mirror always said Snow White was the fairest.
The stepmother became very angry.
The stepmother became very angry.
She ordered a huntsman to kill Snow White.
She ordered a huntsman to kill Snow White.
The huntsman felt sorry for her.
The huntsman felt sorry for her.
He let Snow White go free.
He let Snow White go free.
Snow White ran into the forest.
Snow White ran into the forest.
She found a small house in the woods.
She found a small house in the woods.
Inside, there were 7 tiny beds.
Inside, there were 7 tiny beds.
Snow White was tired and lay down to rest.
Snow White was tired and lay down to rest.
The 7 dwarfs lived in the house.
The 7 dwarfs lived in the house.
They found Snow White sleeping.
They found Snow White sleeping.
The dwarfs took her in and cared for her.
The dwarfs took her in and cared for her.
The stepmother found out Snow White was alive.
The stepmother found out Snow White was alive.
She disguised herself as an old woman.
She disguised herself as an old woman.
The stepmother poisoned an apple.
The stepmother poisoned an apple.
Snow White was tricked with the poisoned apple.
Snow White was tricked with the poisoned apple.
She fell into a deep sleep.
She fell into a deep sleep.
The dwarfs placed her in a glass coffin.
The dwarfs placed her in a glass coffin.
A prince passed by and saw Snow White.
A prince passed by and saw Snow White.
He was captivated by her beauty.
He was captivated by her beauty.
The prince kissed Snow White.
The prince kissed Snow White.
The kiss broke the spell.
The kiss broke the spell.
Snow White woke up happily.
Snow White woke up happily.
The prince asked her to marry him.
The prince asked her to marry him.
Snow White agreed to marry him.
Snow White agreed to marry him.
The stepmother was very angry.
The stepmother was very angry.
She tried to hurt Snow White.
She tried to hurt Snow White.
The prince banished the stepmother.
The prince banished the stepmother.
Snow White and the prince got married.
Snow White and the prince got married.
They lived happily ever after.
They lived happily ever after.
Snow White forgave her stepmother.
Snow White forgave her stepmother.
The dwarfs returned to their home.
The dwarfs returned to their home.
Snow White and the prince ruled happily.
Snow White and the prince ruled happily.
The mirror no longer lied to the stepmother.
The mirror no longer lied to the stepmother.
Snow White was kind and gentle.
Snow White was kind and gentle.
The forest was full of animals.
The forest was full of animals.
The dwarfs protected Snow White.
The dwarfs protected Snow White.
The stepmother's magic mirror was broken.
The stepmother's magic mirror was broken.
Snow White's beauty was natural and pure.
Snow White's beauty was natural and pure.
The story teaches kindness and forgiveness.
The story teaches kindness and forgiveness.
Snow White's bravery helped her survive.
Snow White's bravery helped her survive.
The prince's love saved Snow White.
The prince's love saved Snow White.
Everyone in the story learned important lessons.
Everyone in the story learned important lessons.
Snow White's story is loved worldwide.
Snow White's story is loved worldwide.
And they all lived happily ever after.
And they all lived happily ever after. Thanks.